I want to welcome you back to Momentum. It has been a good week. Has it not been a good week? So, well, yeah, I am on. If you remember, I shared with you a little while ago a trip. We had a big trip this is summer before last. We went here, right? You can tell, big mountain, Tokyo, right? Japan. So, in Tokyo, I have to say, and I don't think I've related this to other people that much, but I had one of the most memorable experiences that had nothing to do with the food or the sights or the travel, and it happened at this place. Yeah. Went to an arcade while we were in Tokyo. You know, we just kind of ducked in, we're like, oh, this is pretty fun. And arcades in Japan are out of this world. They are just a whole another dimension. So this thing like 5 or 6 stories of games. And you know, like the Japanese, they really like the these games, right? The claw games. And they got all these other things. There's skill games, you get these little prizes. So we're at this arcade, and it's called Taito Station Arcade. And I realize, oh, my family's having a good time. I can leave them here while they're enjoying themselves. I can duck out and do a little errand. We're running short a little bit on cash. So I thought, okay, told my family, you guys stay here, do what you do. I'm gonna go exchange some money. So I walk out of this arcade into the sea of humanity that is Tokyo. And it is like just this like big tide of bobbing heads. And you're out there, and I'm using Google Maps. I get turned around a few times, but then I get to the currency exchange, and I exchange my dollars for some yen. I'm like, okay, I'm set for a little while, and then I Google Map myself back. And I get back I told my family, it's gonna be about 20 minutes. It's probably like 25 minutes. So I get back there, and I go into this place, and I go to the first floor. I'm looking for my family. No wife, no kids. I go to the second floor. No Johns. Third floor. I'm just going through, get the fourth floor, get the fifth floor. Where are these people? And I'm starting to panic because I've gone to every nook and cranny of this place and there's no sign of my family. So I text them because there's no ability to call one another when you're on this trip. You know, we had this like phone plan, right? So it's just texting. So I text them like, where are you? Now, oh, meet us down here, we're here. Oh, so I come down to the second floor where they say they are. I go to the banking machines where they say that they're playing. And they're not there. So I'm really panicking now. Like, did I walk through a wormhole or what? But there is kind of like this glitch in the Matrix type feeling when I get down there. And I'm like, you know, everything seems exactly like the place where I left my family. Except that mural. Was it really exactly that mural? Or this bank of games, it really seemed like this bank of games, but I think that last one was a different game. So it dawns on me, I go to one of the employees, and in my broken Japanese, and a little bit of miming, you know, a little, hey, like, is there another Taito Station arcade somewhere in this district? I think we're in Shibuya, right? And he does the whole miming thing back to me. He's like, yes, there is another Taito Station arcade. And so what does he do? He gestures for me to follow him. And I follow him to the exit. So I'm going all the way to the exit. I feel like, okay, this is where he's gonna draw me a map to the other Taito Station cafe, or he's gonna come out like a step or two and point in a direction, and then I'm just, you know, my own devices. Or he'll enter the other place into Google Maps and send me on my way. No, not at all. He steps out and he motions to me. He says a couple things in Japanese to some coworker, motions to me, and then he's like, come across the street. I cross the street with this dude. And then he keeps on motioning to me. We pass through a whole business to get to another block. And then we cross another street, and then we go through another business, and seriously, this man is walking with me 5 or 6, maybe 7 blocks, 5 or 6 minutes at least. And then we get to a certain thoroughfare. He points down the street, And there it is. It looks just like the one that we were just at. And he watches me. We bow to each other, of course. I don't know, the whole bow thing, when in Rome. And he does not read. He watches me go in the right direction to make sure that I'm going in the right direction. Because obviously I'm a stupid person. And then, not only then, does he start returning to it. And this dude is dressed up in his vest. He's got his coin change, right? He's walking across Tokyo for me.
Yeah.
In my 50 years of travel, of continents and cities and cultures, this was by far the kindest expression of, it's the kindest experience I've ever encountered at all.
Wow.
This man not only helped me, he went way beyond the level of help that anybody should go to in order to help another stranger. And I have to say, not just another stranger, but because I'm Chinese presenting, right? So I'm like, just honestly, Chinese tourists do not have a good reputation worldwide, especially in Japan, right? People in Japan are like, oh, Chinese tourists, I'm not gonna help them. But this guy went out of his way for someone who's presenting Chinese. Okay, so if we are honest with ourselves though, these are the kinds of moments, even if they're very super, super, super small, the kinds of moments that etch themselves into our memory. They stand out from the background of our daily existence as unique. Simply when someone steps out of their lane into our lane for no other reason but to express kindness to us, to be kind to you. This morning, as we revisit our study in the book of Ruth, the author is continuing this narrative of how God uses people, like you and me, just normal people, just ordinary normal people, to do his will and to, oh, yeah, there's the path, to make his mark in the lives of other people. Like live important and impactful lives in the lives of other people. And today's passage shows us how simple acts of kindness start us on that path of lovingly changing people's course, their stories. So let's get to our passage. It's Ruth chapter 2, verses 1 through 16. And you can open your Bible or your Bible app if you've got one of those. Or of course, as I say, every week you can open your bulletin because we print it there. But this is such a long passage, we're just going to study it in chunks. So the first chunk is going to be this first about three verses. Okay? So this is the author of the book of Ruth, and they write to us this. Now Naomi had a kinsman of her husband, a man of great wealth of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, "Please let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after one in whose sight I may find favor." And she said to her, "Go, my daughter." So she departed and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. Simple, right? Just a short introduction, which is really just setting the stage for the rest of this whole passage. But what this introduction does kind of begs the question of, well, where are we now? Where are we in this big narrative of this book? So let's back up, as we do, and give ourselves a little bit of context. And as we do every week, we repeat that the whole book of Ruth. First, we don't exactly know who the author of this book was. It's kind of a mystery. They don't announce themselves. But we do know who the book of Ruth has been written to. You can tell it's written to a Jewish audience because of all the cultural, historical, theological references that only a Jewish audience would be interested in or be familiar with. Now, we've already discussed that the big purpose of this book is to show that God is a redemptive God. We've given you this little, what if I called this the square rooty thing, right? Right? That's our how this redemption thing goes. That in our lives filled with catastrophe and difficult circumstances down, God is taking those bad events and tragedies and bringing good out of them. And the book of Ruth tells that redemptive arc through this narrative flow, right? Begins with chapter 1 with terrible tragedy, right there, okay? We're introduced to this Hebrew family of 4, Naomi, her husband Elimelech, and their 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion. Now, family travels from Bethlehem in Israel to Moab. Moab, this foreign, neighboring, pagan nation, and they travel there. Why? Because there's a famine in the nation of Israel. That famine is just the beginning of this family's problems, because when they travel to Moab, it seems as if one of the very first things that happens in Moab is that Elimelech is eliminated. Elimelech passes away. Now, terrible, because he is the patriarch of the family, but let's not panic. There's still hope, because the two sons, Mahlon and Chilion, in Moab, find wives. Okay, so now we got 5 people coming along. But as we've said, the tragedy keeps coming almost rapid fire, because this is totally within the first 5 verses of the whole book, right? Before these 2 sons have children with these wives, first one son dies, and then the second son dies, leaving Naomi all alone with her 2 daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. Naomi then returns to Bethlehem, because by now it's been over a decade. The famine in Israel, it's over. Naomi urges the daughters-in-law, hey, there's no reason to follow me. Stay in Moab, go back to your families, because if you return to them, there is a possibility for some life for you. You could remarry. But if you come with me to Israel, you kind of got this foreigner status, will likely mean that you have no chance of restarting a family there. And we saw in a stunning vow of loyalty, loyal love, or as we've called, well, we haven't called it, but as we've learned, it's called hesed, right, in Hebrew, this kind of loyal love that is really very, very unique to God himself. In that kind of loyal love, Ruth chooses to stick with Naomi. Orpah returns to Moab. And for the last couple of studies, this has been where we have been, just Naomi and Ruth. We are at the lowest of lows in this point of the book, the depths of the tragedy, right there at the very bottom point, where Naomi, she's lamenting the loss of all of the men in her family, and with that loss, she's lost her societal status, her financial status, any means of supporting herself. But as we see in this diagram, it's the turning point. Right? They don't see it, but we see that it's the turning point. From this point on, we're going to be seeing how all the circumstances of these 2 women, they turn around. And the blessings of God heap upon them. It's the beginning of their redemption, the final result of which will be the restoration that is beyond their expectations. Ruth, Naomi's daughter, well, her daughter-in-law, is going to eventually remarry and have a child who then will become the grandfather of the most important Old Testament king, period, King David. And so this is where we are right now, right at that turning point in this whole narrative. Past the lowest of low points, Naomi has re-entered Bethlehem, and she's just told the whole city, oh, all of these terrible events have befallen me. I've been abandoned by God. She says, the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. And so our passage this morning will begin with a section that we're going to title this. Oh, there's that quote. Kindness sacrifices. Kindness sacrifices. Because this is the kind of kindness that these verses are all about. Of course, verse 1 simply introduces us to this future cast member, Boaz, in this drama. We learn that he is a relative, a kinsman of the deceased husband Elimelech, and he's a man of great wealth. But then our camera shifts back to the main protagonists at this point in time, Naomi and Ruth. And these 2 women are just having a normal conversation. It doesn't strike us as out of the ordinary, very significant. All it is, Ruth says to Naomi, she just asks her, please let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after one in whose sight I may find favor. So what's happening here? If you remember, Naomi, just a few verses back, was telling Ruth, don't follow me. Go back to Moab. There's no life for you here. If you come to Bethlehem, she says, return, my daughters. Why should you go with me? But Ruth sticks with Naomi, with that amazing vow that we've heard before, where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord do to me and worse if anything but death parts you and me. So they find themselves at this point in time, and for widows, such as they were, if they wanted to eat and they wanted to live, well, there's one provision in the Old Testament for people in their situation. Gleaning in the fields. Gleaning in the fields, or basically, the not so nice word for it would be scavenging. Scavenging. They're following behind the normal employees who are harvesting the grain and picking up the leftovers. Here it is. Leviticus 19, 9 and 10 tells the Israelites, "Now when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap to the very corners of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest, nor shall you glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather the fallen fruit of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the needy and for the stranger. I am the Lord your God." Gleaning. We don't use that word very often nowadays. I don't think I've ever heard it in a normal modern conversation, gleaning, but it's leftovers. Gleanings are leftovers, the stuff that falls to the ground that you did not catch, that you accidentally may have dropped. To glean is to glean. The verb is to glean. To glean is to clean up the gleanings, right? So Leviticus is simply saying, don't go back after the leftovers if you've dropped something. Let somebody else get that stuff. The poor, the widows, the strangers are the immigrants. People who do not have a way to support themselves. You should be caring for those people by doing this. So considering that Naomi had told Ruth, just a few verses back, don't follow me to Bethlehem, what would have happened if Ruth had heeded that advice and Naomi was now here all alone? Who would be going into the fields doing hard labor for herself? Naomi would be. Naomi. But instead, here we are, and it's Ruth. Ruth actually goes to Naomi and is asking her permission, please let me go. Let me go for you. Let me glean. Who's she doing this for? She's doing it for Naomi and for herself. She's going out in the hot sun and doing this labor of what Naomi would have had to have done for herself. Not complicated. It's not complicated stuff, right? Like whole principle. But often it's missed. Ruth is out there in the fields doing the manual labor that Naomi would have had to have done for herself, for her sake. Kind? Super kind, right? And this is just the beginning. Let's pick up where we left off in verse 3. Now this is a much longer passage, but this is a little bit more about the kindness that's going on here. The passage continues. And she happened to come to the portion of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. Now, behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, "May the Lord be with you." They said to him, "May the Lord bless you." Then Boaz said to a servant who was in charge of the reapers, "Whose young woman is this?" The servant in charge of the reapers replied, "She's the young Moabite woman who returned with Naomi from the land of Moab, and she said, 'Please let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves.' Thus she came and has remained from the morning until now. She's been sitting in the house for a little while." Then Boaz said to Ruth, "Listen carefully, my daughter. Don't go to glean in another field. Furthermore, do not go on from this one, but stay here with my maids. Let your eyes be on the field which they reap, and go after them. Indeed, I've commanded the servants not to touch you. When you're thirsty, go to the water jars and drink from what the servants draw." Then she fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and said to him, "Why have I found favor in your sight, that you should take notice of me, since I'm a foreigner?" Boaz replied to her, "All that you've done for your mother-in-law after the death of your husband has been fully reported to me, and how you left your father and your mother and the land of your birth and came to a people that you did not previously know. May the Lord reward your work, and your wages be full from the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to seek refuge." Whew. Wait, now we're really advancing the story here. Like things are happening. Boo, 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 right? And we know why Boaz was introduced now in verse 1, because he's reintroduced here in verse 3. He becomes a thing. He's like a real character and thing, right? So Ruth is picking grain, all this leftover grain, and apparently this is all one big field. It's like one big field which is divided up. And Ruth comes to the Boaz-owned part of the field. And this is how Boaz becomes aware of Ruth. He's out there, he's checking on his workers, and wait, that's not my worker. Who's that? Who's that? I don't recognize them. He actually sees Ruth. And he asks, wait, who's this lady, right? Whose workers is she? Whose young woman is this? And this is where we're going to call this second action, kindness shines. Okay? Kindness sacrifices, kindness shines as well, because this is the result of Ruth's loyalty and her love towards Naomi. All of her kindness has now shone forth, impressed the whole Bethlehem, how do you say it, Bethlehemite? The Bethlehem community, right? We touched on this a couple of weeks ago. Ruth's chesed, right? This loyal, loving kindness that is so associated with acting like God's heart. It has so impressed this community that when Boaz asks about this young woman from his employees in the fields, right? His employees relate the whole story. She's the young Moabite woman who returned with Naomi from the land of Moab. And we see that this clearly has an impact on Boaz himself. He goes out of his way then to provide for Ruth. He tells his employees, share water with her. Don't bother her, because this is a very lawless time. We discussed that, right? This is a super lawless time. People out there, if you're a young woman and you're not accompanied, you could have bad things happen to you. She says, don't bother her and let her gather in peace. And when Ruth inquires why she has found favor with Boaz, what does he say to her? All that you've done for your mother-in-law after the death of your husband has been fully reported to me, and how you left your father and your mother and the land of your birth, and you came to a people that you did not previously know. You gave up all this, but nothing. You gave up your mother, your father, to express kindness to Naomi. So the kindness of Ruth is so stunning. It's so out of the box, out of the ordinary. People are talking. They're commending her. And in Boaz's case, they're responding to her kindness, because this is the impact when you do something like that. You display this kind of sacrifice, this kind of kindness that sacrifices so much that it makes an impact. It impresses people. That leads to our last portion of verses, which we're going to call kindness surpasses. Kindness surpasses. And this is just found the very last verses, 13 through 16. So let's return to this. The author continues, they say this. Then she said, I have found favor in your sight, my lord, for you have comforted me and indeed have spoken kindly to your maidservant, though I am not like one of your maidservants. At mealtime, Boaz said to her, come here, that you may eat of the bread and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar. So she sat beside the reapers, and he served her roasted grain, and she ate and was satisfied and had some left. When she rose to glean, Boaz commanded his servants, saying, let her glean, even among the sheaves, and don't insult her. Also, you shall purposely pull out for her some grain from the bundles and leave it that she may glean, and don't rebuke her. Okay, this is like Christmas, right? This is like gift after gift after gift after gift, and from the hand of Boaz. And this kindness focuses on Boaz, really. So this is much more than Boaz just allowing Ruth to have water from the sparklets, right? The community water cooler. Now, Boaz invites Ruth to join his own workers for their meal. It's like their lunchtime, because obviously there's some gleaning after this. So we think, it's probably not dinner. It's probably like early supper or lunchtime thing. Not just eating their food, but sitting with them. And not just sitting with them, but apparently sitting right next to the boss, because they're having a conversation here. And not just sitting next to the boss, but the boss is serving her food. Boaz goes the extra step, right? And when Ruth continues to work, he goes even beyond the extra step, and he tells his employees, hey, intentionally leave some grain out for Ruth. What the author is highlighting is that kindness that really gets noticed, and kindness that is effective, and the type of kindness that mimics God, our God, is the kind of extravagant kindness that goes way beyond. Sure, not disturbing Ruth, that's good. Letting her glean behind your reapers, that's nice. So that she's not assaulted on somebody else's land, that's great. But then to welcome her to the same privileges as the people that you pay, That's a big deal. Inviting her to the meal, big deal. Having her sit with you, huge deal. Making sure that she's, now get this right, he's making sure that she has grain to glean, to take home with her, so it doesn't seem like she is depending on his charity, right? I'll leave it out, and then she'll pick it up, right? So it's a little bit of dignity there too, right? Super kind, super kind. But that's what this whole passage is illustrating, this whole narrative arc. Yes, God is going to work redemption and restoration. God's going to work it. He's turning tragedy around in the lives of people. That's what he does. And yes, God could do that at the snap of his fingers. Just, it could be a fleeting thought. It could happen. He'd just make it happen. But what does he do? God uses the kindness of people. God makes kindness the starting point of redemption, so that we see that redemption comes through us, our simple day-to-day actions toward other people. Kindness is the starting point of the redemptive work of God. Kindness is the starting point of the redemptive work of God, and that kindness comes through you and I. Works in our lives, through our lives, into the lives of other people. God is working through the kindness of Boaz. God is working through the kindness of Ruth. So this whole book has this amazingly joyful and redemptive, restorative ending. God is working through your kindness and my kindness in the lives of others to lead them to redemption. So, very clear applications from today's narrative. 3 in particular, all about kindness. Obviously, the first application is this. See the prerequisite of kindness in redemption. Kindness as the prerequisite. That if we were to look at the whole arc of this story, what gets the ball rolling here? Like, you're at the bottom of the bottom, right? Everybody's died already. What gets the ball rolling? Well, it's the first mover that starts things going is Ruth's vow to Naomi. That vow of hesed, that vow of loyal kindness towards Naomi. Being loving. Where Ruth sees her mother-in-law destitute, hopeless, crushed, and Ruth says to her, no way, I am not leaving you. I'm going to be with you. I'm going to be with your people. I'm going to die with you. This ain't happening. You're not going to be alone. That one kindness starts an avalanche of kindness throughout the rest of the book, where the townspeople hear about this. They're commending Ruth to Boaz. They're being kind in that way. Ruth lives out her kindness to Naomi by going and gleaning in the fields, and then Boaz is kind to Ruth and gets her food and invites her in, and then back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Eventually, it leads to this joy-filled ending, but the arc of redemption starts with kindness. It's the seed. And it's no different than the redemptive story of our own lives. That our redemptive arc starts with God's loving kindness towards us, with God so loved the world, that's us, we're in the world, God so loved the world that he gives to us his son, who gives up his glory and his exaltation and embraces us and spends time and abides with us and sacrifices his life for us, taking our death upon himself on the cross so that we might live and be forgiven. It all begins with God's loving kindness. Book of Romans says this about how our lives are changed. It says, or do you think lightly of the riches of his kindness and tolerance and patience, not knowing that the kindness of God leads you to repentance? The kindness of God leads you to repentance. It's not standing up on some soapbox outdoors and yelling at people about their badness, or building coalitions to increase the morality of the society, or filling stadiums with light shows and impressive productions. No, it begins with the kindness of you and I. That's where it begins. Most of us remember this face, hopefully. Oh, wait, here's the kindness. I just think. So the first time that Katie came to us, she was a missionary in Germany. She was out there, and she taught us a whole bunch about Ukraine, right? She taught us about praying for Ukraine and all the conflict in Ukraine that was going on. But then she moved to San Francisco. She's always going to the most strategic places in the world. She moved to San Francisco, and she said, I'm really called to this city because, as we heard from her, super difficult place for people to know Jesus. And Also a very influential place. She's convinced that if we touch the people of San Francisco, that the effects of that city will continue to ripple out among a whole nation, okay? So I'm pretty convinced of that too. That's a very, very convincing case. So if you watch Katie's last video presentation, hopefully you're a supporter and she sends out videos. The big deal about her video is she's like, she does a little bit of evangelism, but a lot of what she does is she trains other people to share who Jesus is with other people. And she just says, this is the big hurdle. This is the big hurdle for so many people. They always are talking about getting the opportunity to share about Jesus. Always talking about, pray that I have this opportunity to share with my coworker. Or, I'm looking for that opportunity to share Jesus with my aunt in the nursing home. Or I met somebody at the coffee house. I was looking for that right time, right? That opportunity to whip out the track or to share the Romans road or, explain everything about Jesus that I know about and his saving love and sacrifice for that person. Impulse is fantastic. The impulse is great. We all want to share Jesus with other people that we care about. Her warning has been this, though. In her training of other people, she says, you're looking to give information, but you're looking to give that information first without the prerequisite of being Jesus to those people. Being loving, spending time with them, being a friend, an example, and doing real acts of kindness to them. Realizing that the opportunity is part of this process that gets you to the opportunity. Here in Ruth, you see it. The road to redemption begins with this amazing, loyal, loving, extreme, sacrificial kindness. God's message to us, resulting in our repentance and turning to him, began with his kindness to us in Jesus. So application number 1 is see the prerequisite of kindness, that it's part of a process to getting to redemption. But we don't the opportunity to them, bing, out of nowhere. We need to be in that process. Application number 2 is this. See the power of kindness in redemption. The power of kindness in redemption. See how simple kindness can open people like you would not believe. Build bridges, can soften hearts. In the book of Ruth, kindness. Her kindness does wonders. Just think about it. If you remember, Ruth is a Moabitess. She is not someone to be listened to. She's not just from a pagan nation, but from a pagan nation that often warred with Israel. So she's got to first overcome the fact that people already would not like her just because she's foreign, which is, a hurdle in virtually every culture, the foreigner hurdle. But she's got 2 more strikes against her. She's from a land that is traditionally godless and a land that is seen as an enemy of Israel. What overcomes all of those hurdles? Kindness. Ruth's kindness. Ruth's dedicated, loyal love to her mother-in-law. Her refusal to abandon Naomi in the middle of distress. The town of Bethlehem is abuzz. They hear of the kindness of Ruth, and despite the Moabitess-ness of her, they say, we respect that. We respect that. Opens all kinds of other doors throughout this book. I told you about this experience, right? Tokyo, me being there. It's my misadventure, how I got lost. This employee leads me back through virtually all of Tokyo, just to reorient me as a lost tourist. All in spite of this language barrier, and all, this whole situation arose because stupid, right? Like, have you ever not wanted to help someone because, they're just stupid. They deserve whatever their stupidness got them to. That is right here, right? This dude right here should just be wallowing in the original arcade because I'd be the employee. I would not be helping. I would be laughing in the back going, this guy thinks that he's somewhere else, but he's not there. I'm in the wrong place because I mistook one whole building for a whole other building. What this gentleman does in leading me across Tokyo was super kind. He did not let me wallow in the stupid. And there was a lot of it. And so I was overwhelmed by his kindness, right? Just think, at that very moment of pointing me to my destination, as we both bow to one another, yes, if he were to say, oh, I would like to recommend to you this nice restaurant, or, oh, I would like to recommend to you this nice business or whatever, you should really go visit it. Would I listen to that gentleman? You bet I would. At that point in time when I was on the right track, I was ready to jump off of a bridge for this man. You tell me what you wanted, I'll go anywhere for you. This is what the book of Ruth is showing us. There's a power in kindness. Perhaps a more persuasive power than answering every question that someone has about the Bible, or all of our arguments, or all of your years of erudition. See the prerequisite and see the power of kindness. Redemption so often starts with just being kind. Easy. Find out applications. Right. Oh, I can realize this and I can realize that. But be kind. Just be kind. Be kind to people. Be kind as God has been kind to us. As God has been there seeing our need and our separation from him, and God took the first step in meeting that need, sending Jesus, the Son of God, making the required sacrifice. Jesus living his perfect life and exchanging his perfect record for our own sinful record by dying on the cross so that we could be welcomed into the family of God. Be that kind of kind. Be that kind of kind. The go out of your way for others kind of kind. The spend your resources extravagantly on others, whether it's time or your talents or your cash. Spend it extravagantly on others. Don't be looking out for yourself kind of kind. And maybe, if you've been praying for an opportunity to share the news of Jesus with someone else, include in that prayer, God, also open an opportunity for me where I can simply live out the kindness of Jesus to that person. Show me where I can express your extravagant, loyal, sacrificial, out of this world kindness in real, concrete actions to souls in need that you've brought into my life.